Hey, so today I'm talking about this huge, enormous Borox water filter. This is not even the large size. I believe this is just kind of the average size. How did I end up with this? Well, I live in a city and I am someone who is kind of concerned about water quality. There are people who don't care, and in that case, do not be watching this video. My husband does not care. He does not drink the water out of this thing. This is pretty much just for me. But if you care about water quality, your options are either to go really extreme and add some like water filtration, reverse osmosis system to your house, or to go really unextreme and get like a Brita water filter. Or this is kind of in the middle. Get a large water filter that's a little more substantial. I decided not to go with something like a Brita because those filters require constant replacement. And I know myself well enough to know that I cannot remember to do that. This is a gravity fed system with charcoal filters that live inside here. You put the water in the top and it drips into the bottom. And then this bottom container has the spigot, which then releases the water. So, I have a lot of thoughts about it. First of all, thoughts about the brand itself. So, if you're familiar at all with Berkey filters, you'll know that this looks weirdly just like a Berkey filter. Um, Berkey filters made some claims about their filters removing microorganisms, which were not actually true. So they had a little bit of a scandal and then were replaced by Borox, which almost feels like a rebrand of the same thing, except they're not making any claims about microorganism. I think it's still a quality filter. So maybe I ended up with Borax because it was what I noticed first. I didn't really look into it until later on. But I do think I would probably prefer to get the Borax brand over the Berkey because they at least have some data to back up their claims and they're not making fraudulent claims to begin with. Um, Other thoughts. This is a very expensive system. It's probably about, I think it's about $350 for the stainless steel model itself, and includes the water filters. You can, however, use HSA funds to purchase this if you go through the Borax website. So that's something to be aware of if that's something you have access to. Um, Anyway, it's kind of an investment. Again, I try to do the math of how much water am I actually going to be go like using, and then is it worth it to get something a smaller filter that I have to keep replacing the filters? And the math added up to be actually cheaper to go with something like this if I was going to be using it consistently. So that was kind of what made up my mind. Do I like it? I have been using this for a year now, and I do find that the water, well, first off, the water actually tastes different after it has been filtered through, which to me says it's probably doing something at least. Um, I think that it is a nice, simple system. It's not very easy to break something like this because, again, it's just you fill the top, it drips into the bottom. However, the one spot where it is able to break, which is this spigot here, it has broken. This is not the original Borax spigot. This is a spigot I got from Walmart that I replaced it with because that spigot suddenly started not actually closing all the way. So there was just a continuous leak onto my floor from this thing. It did cause some minor floor damage, so that was not great. The other way you can mess this up is by overfilling it. So if you fill the top and then you forget that it's full and you fill it up again and the bottom container is already full of water, it will overflow. I did, I spilled a lot of water from this thing. So that's not fantastic. Um, it is a little bit clunky to refill it, primarily because this top section has these two like um things at the bottom that stick out. So it's hard to set this down flat which means it will always be at an angle. And if you have to put it in your sink, as I do, then you're kind of stuck with this just thing on an angle, just sitting in your sink filling up. Um, it overall, I would say it's been a pretty positive experience. I don't regret getting it, but it has not been something that has been the most wonderful product of all time either. And the reason I got it to filter the water, like I can't actually prove that that has done anything for me. I wouldn't say that my health has drastically increased. I don't test the water before and after, so I can't verify their claims independently. All I can say is the water does taste a little better to me. And other than the spigot and the slight refill issues, it seems to be working as advertised. So that's good. And it is a mental relief not to have to worry about changing those filters frequently because I mean, I can't go through that much water. I can't even remember how many thousands of gallons it said it was supposed to be good for. As for what I expect to see in the Amazon reviews, I I am expecting to see some complaints about the spigot because I do think it really is a weak point. Um, and I just on a gut level, I think I would probably expect this to be sitting somewhere around a 3.7 stars, somewhere just under 4 stars, because it's a quality thing that seems to work well, but it also just has some flaws. So let's take a look. All right, here we go. We have the Amazon page pulled up. And it is looking like I was pretty close. So we're sitting at 3.8 out of 5. That's pretty much what I expected to see. As you can see, it is really just kind of stupidly expensive. Um, and like I said, you kind of have to do the math on whether it's going to be worth it for you if you're going to be using this a lot. It looks like the good reviews. This person points out that it seems to be working well, but it needs a level gauge. What they mean by that is that some devices that have a spigot like this have a little gauge that sits on top of it that you can actually use to see how full the container is. At least I'm assuming that's what they mean by that. I wish they had that as well, but I will point out that Borax actually sells kind of an upgraded spigot that does have a gauge. Um, it is again really expensive. I mean, there's a reason I didn't buy a Borax replacement spigot because it's like $40 versus $10 in Walmart. Um, all right. This person says they wish they could give it 0 stars. Great. An affront to mankind's progress. I do love when people get creative with their reviews. Um, well, okay, I don't actually understand what they're upset about here. That's a test for bacteria. Okay, so what they're talking about is when you get your borax filter, you will get a red dye test. My understanding of it was that you pour the red dye in the top and you just make sure that there's no dye that's coming through into the bottom container just to show that the filter is filtering. Perhaps that's a test for bacteria that I wasn't aware of. I don't know. This one does not hold much weight with me. The black paint chips, I do not have the black paint model. I can't really speak to that. Let's see what we have here. I like to look at the top good reviews, and in general, I also like to look at the most helpful critical reviews just to see what the complaints were. It looks like those two are the top one. I really don't, I'm gonna filter down to the 1 star only. Wow, there aren't very many reviews of this. That seems to be part of the problem. Um, it looks like that kind of is going to cover those reviews. Um, that's kind of why I wanted to make a video about this. I'm not sure how many people are really talking about their filters here. But yeah, if you're thinking about getting something like this, I would think about why you are what you're hoping to accomplish. So, are you concerned about heavy metal contamination? Are you concerned about PFAs? Like, what are you trying to filter out? Because different filters do different work. Um, and this filter is going to filter out probably more than your average filter that you'd put in your fridge, like again, the Brita, but less perhaps than your reverse osmosis system, which just is like so much work. And I don't think it's feasible for most people. And it's certainly not feasible for like a renter like myself. Um, but I also would do the math for yourself. Like, are you someone who can reliably be remembering to change filters on a Brita filter? I cannot. And I know that like spending that little extra money every month or so to switch out that filter would bother me more than spending a lot up front to have a filter that I don't have to be changing all the time. Um, and then I do also want to say again, the HSA funds eligibility of the borax did make a difference for me. I did actually choose to do that because I do have I that just made sense for my situation. So if that's something that makes sense for you and makes things a little bit easier, that's also a helpful thing to keep in mind. Don't be surprised if the spigot starts leaking. That's again, my biggest gripe with it so far. The flooding was not fantastic. Um, but overall, I think it's pretty solid. I do think a 3.8 is probably fair um, review for this item. And yeah, ask if you have any questions, just leave a comment and I'll see if I can answer it.